As we reach the 30-year anniversary of the title, that made Shigeru Miyamoto a superstar developer. A complicated tale of secret development contracts and protracted legal battles emerges from the ether. Donkey Kong is perhaps the greatest outsider game of all time. It broke all the rules because its creator, the now legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, did not know them to begin with. It not only launched the career of gaming's most celebrated creative mind, it gave birth to the jump and run platform genre, as we know it, and established Nintendo as perhaps the industry's longest-standing superpower. 30 years later, Donkey Kong remains one of gaming's most recognizable icons, and still much of its story isn't told. Most accounts of its development treat Miyamoto as if he was the only man in the room, that his sketches, ideas, and sprites were brought to life aided by magic, as some worker bees, too unimportant to even mention. For many years, the question of who developed Donkey Kong went unanswered, because it was seldom even asked. Back before credit rolls were a common part of video games, developers used to find other ways to sign their work, usually in the default high-star tables, but sometimes with messages or initials embedded in the ROM itself. These are sometimes the only clues left to help connect these games to their authors. A scan of Donkey Kong's ROM proves to have a more revealing message than most. Congratulations! If you analyze difficult this program, we would teach you TEL Tokyo Japan 044 244 2151 extension 304 system design Ikegami Code LIM Ikegami Code Limited, also known as Ikegami Tsushinki, is an engineering firm still operating today, and seldom associated with video game development. But back in the late 1970s and early 1980s, it was one of the first shadow developers in the Japanese market, contractors like the famous Toes that would develop games silently, without credit. Not only was this hidden message found in Donkey Kong, but in other 1980s classics like Zaxxon and Congo Bongo, both released under Sega's name. Ikegami was more than just a group of hired coders. It was a full development team capable of repeat success, and unlike other shadow developers, it owned the rights to games it developed, placing Donkey Kong at the center of a bitter copyright dispute. Shigeru Miyamoto first came to Nintendo, a quickly growing toy manufacturer, in 1977. It seemed like a dream job for the artist engineer, still fresh out of college, who had joined the company in the hopes of designing toys. But Nintendo was just beginning to explore a new medium, the burgeoning market of coin-operated video games, and Miyamoto's dreams were deferred. Nintendo's president, Hiroshi Yamauchi, assigned the young designer to create the cabinet and promotional art for its new video games, Sheriff, Space Firebird, and Radarscope. Unlike Nintendo's previous arcade machines, largely electromechanical amusements, these arcade machines were programmable video games, with relatively cutting-edge hardware, a major step toward competing with the likes of Taito, which had changed the face of arcades with the release of Space Invaders. Nintendo's management knew what it had to do to compete, but the company's modest engineering department had not yet become a video game development studio. Nintendo turned to Ikegami Tsushinki, which agreed to develop games under Nintendo's name, as well as engineer and manufacture the hardware they would run on. Nintendo made the cabinets itself and handled all the marketing. It seemed like a fair arrangement, either because of their eye-catching cover art or their clever gameplay. Sheriff and Radarscope were successful in Japan, But Nintendo's rivals like Chato and Namco were making a killing in the American market, and Nintendo wanted a piece of the action. Yamauchi tasked his son-in-law, Minoru Arakawa, with establishing an American base of operations, and their first order of business was to bring radar scope to the U.S. market. Because Nintendo could not make their own radar scope hardware to match demand, they were forced to order units from Ikegami ahead of time, anticipating America would greet the game as warmly as its native Japan. Nintendo ordered 3,000 units from Ikegami, and shipped them to Nintendo's American distribution facility in Washington. Alas, radar scope was not a hit in America. In fact, it sold only 1,000 units, leaving 2,000 arcade machines with very expensive hardware sitting in Nintendo's warehouse. The implications were potentially devastating. Nintendo could either give up and face financial ruin, or it could develop a conversion kit that would turn those cabinets into something marketable. Arakawa backed his father-in-law to put for the latter course of action. Valve has launched a handful of end-of-year lists and corresponding sales that offered fellow game devs a peek at what games performed best on Steam across a variety of categories. All in all, the year-end roundup lists the top sellers, top new releases, top-selling VR titles, top farmer early access games, and most played games in from 2018. However, as with past Steam lists, the specific rankings and actual revenue of each title is not disclosed. Instead, most top seller lists are organized into 4 tiers: Platinum 4, the first of the 12 best sellers; Gold 4, 30th through 24th; Silver 4, 25th through 40th; and Bronze 4, 41 straight through 100th. So, in no particular order, the top games that earned the most gross revenue on Steam this year: The Elder Scrolls Online, Rocket League, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, Rainbow Six Siege, Dota 2, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Monster Hunter World, Civilization V, Warframe, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Far Cry 5, and Grand Theft Auto V. A bulk of those games are notably free-to-play, or live games, which makes sense given that Valve says revenue from game sales, in-game transactions, and DLC all factor into what lands a game on that top sellers list. The top new releases category, however, takes a different approach and ranks the games released this year that generated the most revenue in 2018 according to the month they released. Since 150 games are included in this roundup, it's best to head over to Steam to see the rankings in full. But games like Celeste, Beat Saber, Cultist Simulator, and Mutant ought to even all make appearances on that list. Former New-Gen Systems developers say their sudden firings were the result of retaliation over ongoing labor disputes. But the company says that's not the case. Speaking to Variety, the New-Gen Systems representative says that the 6 developers in question were fired late last year because they used a professional tool for an inappropriate purpose, in a way that the company says goes against its values and corporate culture. All 6 workers fired in late December were told that the dismissal was due to, according to the Video Game Workers Union of France, staff having negatively affected the mood of the studio and using insulting language in a conversation that took place in a private channel. While users given reason for the firing lines up between that original statement and this most recent details, the staff previously argued that the move was in retaliation for strike participation, as all 6 fired developers were involved with the 2-month-long strike. over the pay dispute at the beginning of 2018. However, Eugene maintains that the two issues are unrelated. Telling Variety, "We have fully respected our employees' right to strike, and our team still comprises those who were on strike, including one employee who has since been promoted to a managerial position. Our team currently counts 26 employees, and will continue growing in the coming weeks." Nearly half of the studio staff at the time, roughly 21 developers, went on strike in mid-February to protest a long trend of unfair pay practices at the company, including lack of overtime compensation, disregard for minimum wage laws, and paying employees less than the wages outlined in their contracts. The strike itself lasted 2 months and ended when management refused to budge. Though the 15 new Gen Systems employees are now working with the staff to bring their grievances before a French labor tribunal this year. New numbers from the Apt Group show that 2018 was a standout year for Nintendo. In a series of tweets detailing the firm's year-end sales estimates for the United States game industry, analyst Matt Piscatelli said that the Switch was 2018's best-selling platform, both in terms of units sold and dollar sales. Not only did the Switch dominate 2018, but Piscatelli also notes that the partially portable console had the highest annual unit and dollar sales total for any hardware platform in the past 3 years, beating out a record set by the PlayStation 4 back in 2015.